said stuff without a scare.
This defense sucks. You are a professional team. Act like one, for God's sakes.
One of the greats. Buffone was a bear. He was a Chicago Bear. Now at the barroom for year 9, knowing winning is the bottom line. John Buffone continues the legacy. He's got Doug's pedigree.
If you look at this team and this quarterback and this coach, if it's not going to be now, when?
And John does it with 2 pros, Alyssa Barbieri and Danny Shimon. Buffone, 55 years old Bear, covering all the team's affairs. Buffone, 55 years old Bear, covering all the team's affairs.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Buffone 55. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, I'm done pinching myself. I've been doing it for about 72 hours and I'm getting bruises all over myself. But it's true. The Bears have won a playoff game for the first time in 15 years. You all remember 2011, right? Jay Cutler, he threw for 2 touchdowns, 274 yards. Matt Forte had 134 yards of total offense, and the Bears beat the Seahawks 35-24. But the following week in the conference championship game, the Green Bay Packers knocked Jay Cutler out of that game. His replacement, Caleb Haney, threw 2 interceptions, and the Bears went on to lose to the Packers 21-14, and then subsequently went on to lose 17 of 20 games to the Packers over the next 10 years. So can you blame me for pinching myself after the Bears dramatically came back from a 15-point fourth quarter deficit to beat the Packers and hopefully rid themselves of this dreaded curse? We're going to break that all down. We're going to talk about that game, the game coming up with the Rams. But first, let me bring in my Buffone 55 cohorts. First, she's the Midwest managing editor of USA Today's Football Wires, including Bears Wire. Alyssa Barbieri, how you doing, Alyssa? How you feeling?
I'm feeling amazing. And just before, coming on this show, I was thinking how not only is this the first time that we're all together celebrating the Bears beating the Packers, but the first time that we are covering a Bears playoff win on this show.
9 years. We've been doing the show 9 years. We've never had a show following a playoff win. It's the first time. There's not a whole lot of firsts when you do a show for 9 years. This is the first.
It's crazy and deserved. I mean, we have done our waiting. We have, especially with this rivalry and the way that the Bears went out. And I mean, I thought they were dead to rights. I mean, most of Chicago, after that first half and heading into the second half, but watching them again come back in the fourth quarter and to watch the Packers squirm, to watch the fans squirm and cry and make excuses and, cry about, all of a sudden this being a rivalry. It's just so sweet. And I'm so excited to break this down and to keep going. It's going to be great.
Absolutely. Well, next to join us is the Barroom's lead analyst, Danny Shimon. Make sure you are a subscriber to his YouTube channel, Shimon Draft Scout. Danny, can you believe it? Is this real life? Is this fantasy? How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I mean, after the game, and actually the next day, Sunday, I was mentally and physically just exhausted. That game took everything out of me. I'm not kidding. It was the lows of the lows and then the highs of the highs, and then just trying to come back down after that was insane. But it was one hell of a game. I asked my son 5 times afterwards, can you believe they came back and won that game? This is something that we don't see, guys, much less a playoff game, but being the Packers and doing that big comeback and just the dramatic flair it had, and obviously everything from at the end of the game with the coaches and the locker room stuff, it's been one hell of a high, and like you said earlier, guys, let's keep it going. Let's not stop here.
Yeah, I don't even know what reality is anymore. John Harbaugh gets fired from Baltimore. Mike Tomlin steps down as the coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Bears are playing for the right to play in the NFC Championship game this weekend. What world are we living in? I don't care if it's a dream. I don't want to wake up. I want to go around the horn and just
there are 9 coaching vacancies, and
yes.
none of them are the Bears.
Not one of them are the Bears, and we're not doing mock drafts. We're not talking about who the next candidate is for the coach, for the head coach. We're not talking about what quarterback they should be drafting this year. We're talking about Bears and Rams in the divisional round, and the winner goes to the NFC Championship game. I still can't believe I can't wrap my head around this. I want to go around the horn and just talk about the emotional reactions we had in that game, and I'm going to start because as I told you guys last week, I went back to my hometown near Pittsburgh. Most of my friends are Steelers fans, but I got great friends because they played along with me. They all wore Bears gear. I may have brought the Bears gear and made them wear it, but they wore it anyway. I had Lou Malnati shipped in from Chicago. I had Portillo's dog shipped in from Chicago. I had all my friends wearing Bears jerseys. And you know what? I don't want to take too much credit for the Bears win, but at halftime, when the Bears were getting trounced, I told my one friend who was wearing an Urlacher jersey and my brother who was wearing a alternate orange Rex Grossman jersey for whatever reason. I said, guys, switch the jerseys. There's something going on wrong. You got to switch jerseys right now. They switched jerseys at halftime, and that's when the Bears came alive. And you know what? It was just an emotional roller coaster because one of my friends who happens to like to wager on games looked at the halftime score and he said, you know what? I got a feeling I'm putting some money on the Bears to come back and win this Bears money line. I'm like, what? He's like, I got this weird feeling. I'm going for it. And you know what? It hit. And so just this whole crazy experience of riding that emotional roller coaster, not believing what I'm even watching. I lost my voice screaming at the TV. Shout out to my mom, Mrs. Buffone, because when I came back to visit, the whole basement was turned into a Bears bar, man. The Christmas tree got transformed into a Chicago Bears tree with Chicago Bears cards and red and blue bulbs everywhere. There were, orange and blue all over the basement. There's this antique doll that she dressed up in Bears gear. It was really creepy, but also kind of cool. Maybe that helped us a little bit. So just awesome experience just to be around. We may have set off some fireworks after the Bears won. It was just all overall. Like I woke up, and Danny, to your point, I woke up the next day. I'm like, did I just hit chest day for 4 hours? And I'm exhausted. I was physically and mentally exhausted. But I still couldn't sleep because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. So it was an incredible game. And kind of like what we talked about last week was, you know what? It would have been a sour taste if you have this incredible season that you weren't expecting out of the Chicago Bears. They get a home game. They win the NFC North, but they lose to Green Bay in Chicago to end the season. That would have been such a sour way to end the season. Not saying that I'm not going to be upset if they lose to the Rams this week. I want them to win. I think they can win. But we avoided that ultra sour taste of losing to Green Bay to end the season. And left them with an incredible sour taste in their mouth. The Green Bay or Milwaukee Sports Radio has been. Sometimes I just put it on to see what they're saying. I'm like, hey, we usually say that stuff. This is awesome. Now they're saying it. So it was just a really good experience as a Bears fan. One, at least in my lifetime, it's already cracked the top 5. As far as things that I've witnessed personally. I wasn't alive for 85. I wasn't alive for some of the glory days in the 80s. So this is one of the top 5 experiences for me as a Bears fan that I was able to experience. Alyssa, what was your experience like watching this game?
Well, I mean, I feel like a lot of the same as Bears fans where, I mean, I'm a pessimist and I have to eventually at some point I'm going to believe that this isn't the same old Bears when they get down the first half and it was to the Packers and I was like, oh no, they have no chance. And then the second half I'm like, are they nope, don't get your hopes up. Don't get your hopes up. But these aren't the same old Bears. And eventually I'm going to get that. It was just crazy to watch that. And yeah, I'm surprised that the neighbors did not call the cops on me because it got very loud. Felt like we won the Super Bowl, but like we've been saying, this isn't the end. I want to keep going. It was just an array of emotions. I mean, I wanted to be that. I felt like that cheese grater guy, at the game on the TV.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
I did get that past security, by the way.
That's impressive. I
don't
need
want
to know
nobody
that.
stuck
They're
that
like,
in.
they're
What?
probably
Maybe
like,
I don't
no,
want to
buddy,
know.
we know what
Now
you're
I don't
doing.
want to know. Yeah, I don't want to know now.
But yeah, it was just a roller coaster. And like you said, if they had gone out this season losing to the Packers at home in the wild card game, I mean, the season wouldn't have been a complete waste because I mean they exceeded expectations this season. But this is sweet. Like you said, if they lose to the Rams, who are at one point were the top seed in the NFC, have a MVP candidate and Matthew Stafford. I mean, it won't be the end of the world. It'll be okay next time. But I feel like they do have a chance this year. We've talked about the parity in the NFL. This is the chance. This could be the year for them to go out and do something crazy. I mean, I want to be back here next week talking about another win. But yeah, just an absolute emotional roller coaster. Like you said, I felt like I played. I worked until 2 a.m. Couldn't fall asleep until 3 a.m. Eastern time. So, but I didn't care. It was just an incredible experience.
Very nice of Aldo to put our preseason predictions for the Bears up there. Danny 9-8, Alyssa 9-8. I said 10-7. I talked myself into it in the last week. Now we were really wrong on the games they were going to win, but they still exceeded our expectations. Danny, I know you like to watch this game and you like to be intense when you're watching the game as far as the execution of things, what's going on. But as a fan, how do you stay focused and calm, cool, and collected when you're watching this?
Right. Typically, when I watch a game, I'm in my own little zone, my own little room, shelter, if you want to call it, and I take my notes. I watch things that I need to watch meticulously. But my friends insisted on having a get together, a watch party. So he's like, it's going to be us 4 or 5 guys, whatever, blah blah. I brought my son. And then, so we're sitting there, game starts. I'm like, I start telling them, listen, guys, if the Bears get a first down on this first drive, they're going to score on the first drive. Sure enough, they get the field goal. And then all of a sudden, other people came in. And the other people that came in down into the room are not necessarily football people. So when the game got out of hand, they're starting talking about shopping and doing this stuff. And I'm already fuming inside. And I already warned my friends, I'm like, I am different when I watch Bears games. Like, I am a different person. Like, you will not recognize this person. Like, who the hell is this guy? And sure enough, and listen, like I think you mentioned earlier, like when they were down 21-3, I'm like, okay, it's one thing to lose, but they're not 21-3. The Packers are not 21-3 better than this team. They are not this better than this team, right? So I'm like, this is I was so disappointed. And then when the comeback started, and then I couldn't. I did my typical Danny stuff, and then I noticed once I kind of got control of my senses, I noticed the people who are not football people were like frightened at the way that I was reacting at the game. They were literally all in like they're quiet. They're just sitting there quiet, watching the game, clutching their water bottles, and when the game was finally over. I think one point they thought I was going to punch a TV because there was a intentional grounding penalty that they weren't calling initially, and I went to the TV and I said, "Call it intentional grounding," and a few expletives came out. One of the women thought she was about to leave because she was scared that I was going to do something violent. So I get intense when I watch these games, and now you ratchet it up more because of the playoff, because of the Packers. So by the end of the day, I was, like I said, I was emotionally drained. And some of the participants were like, "We were scared for you. We thought something's going to happen. We were ready to like call 911 or something like that was going to happen." So it was an experience for everybody around me. Now, what's funny enough, they invited me to come back to do another watch party this week. And I'm like, "Sure, you guys want to
They didn't
hang
learn
out
their
with me
lesson
one more
apparently.
time?" I'm like, so yeah, it was a great experience for me. But then I think it was just an eye-opening experience for some people that had not seen that side of me before.
I want to jump into this game, but before we do that, I want to get both of your opinions on something as far as, I'm not going to get into the whole, like, the entire year Bears fans have been told, well, this is their Super Bowl. The Bears have set a record this year. I think they have 12 Super Bowl rings. But coming off a very emotional and historic win over your arch nemesis, over the Green Bay Packers in a playoff game, which is something most of us have never experienced before. Any of us really experienced before. But how hard do you guys think it's going to be to recenter yourself to say, hey, that was a big win, but there's unfinished business here. You got to go into the divisional round. It's going to be at home again in Soldier Field. It's going to be like 0 degrees, fair weather. We'll get into that. But like, how much do you enjoy before you got to get refocused, or are you concerned about such an emotional win and then maybe a letdown going into Sunday night, Alyssa?
Yeah, I don't think I'm too worried about that because, you have Ben Johnson and that coaching staff there to recenter them and the veteran leaders in the locker room. I think they had that Saturday night and Sunday because you had that extra day there celebrating. And I think it's back to work Monday and it's on to the Rams. And I think especially after that game against the 49ers where, I think, Los Angeles, very similar, where they had that high powered offense, this is an opportunity, I think, for them to go and, get revenge. And they've been really good at answering, after they lose, like whether it's to the Packers the first time, and bouncing back and rattling off a winning streak. So, I mean, I don't think I'm too worried about this being, this isn't their Super Bowl. Like they want to win the actual Super Bowl. But I mean, I'm sure it felt really great. And especially knowing that you're going to have the home crowd again, having them behind you, I think that'll be enough to also get them into the game as just like an extra boost. But yeah, I think like, especially with that extra day with this game, yeah, I'm not too worried about that. They got the right guys in charge there and the veterans in the locker room.
Danny, any level of concern going into this?
Wait, so you're talking about me or you're talking about the team?
We can talk about both. Are you concerned about yourself or in the Bears? I mean, either
me,
one.
Personally, I'll start with me. Like I'm giving myself to Sunday, Monday, and today to kind of live and celebrate this victory. But tomorrow I turn the page. Tomorrow is basically just like a team does, right? Today is usually the team's off day. Tuesdays, Wednesday they're back in and they start game planning and practicing. I believe they have a walkthrough tomorrow. So I think that's where in terms of the team's point of view, I agree wholeheartedly with Alyssa. I think Ben Johnson and the rest of the staff will get these guys squared away and just say, hey, listen, right, we want to go 1-0, right? Ben Johnson said, prepare yourself to play 5 weeks, 5 more games after the end of the regular season, and each week prepare to go 1-0. So we went 1-0 last week. This is a whole new week. Got to refocus, recenter, and get back into the game plan here, and hopefully get off to a better start against the Rams. But I think the coaching staff, is been hitting the right notes all season long, and I think with having they're calling him Demon Ben Johnson now, having him at the head of that pyramid there, or the hierarchy, if you will. I think the Bears will kind of follow the lead of their coach and refocus, laser focus back in on the Rams here starting tomorrow.
Alyssa, you obviously the rivalry's bad. I mean, the rivalry never went anywhere, but it has intensified now because it feels like it's not one-sided at this point. You reported on it at Bears Wire. Tell us what you heard from players and coaches.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, it was a one-sided rivalry for a couple decades, and it's just nice to be competitive again. But I mean, when we're talking about the reactions, I mean, you have to start with Ben Johnson. I mean, people cannot stop talking about him. Whether it's that post-game handshake, heard around the world, or that locker room speech. I love that Ben Johnson has made it clear that he does not like the Packers, and that's as it should be. And I think that's what this rivalry needs. That post-game locker room video, I don't know what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting him to start with F the Packers. I effing hate those guys, but I started cheering like the rest of the players. And then to have him double down on that the next day, I was like, yes. He spoke about the importance of this being a rivalry again. And, those pregame scuffles and the head coach animosity, that's all part of it. I mean, watching him and listening to him talk about the rivalry and like the animosity with him and Matt LaFleur, it made me think about do you remember when Matt Eberflus was spotted hanging with Matt LaFleur at a basketball game?
Yeah.
Like I'm like, what is that? Right. Meanwhile, some of the first words out of Ben Johnson's mouth at his first press conference was that he loved beating Matt LaFleur twice this season. And I think that's what's been needed in this rivalry. You need a coach that's going to respect it, who's going to bring the hate and the dedication to destroying this team. And we're starting to see the tides change. And then when you kind of look at, some of the other players, Caleb Williams, put the Packers on notice, saying, quote, we're here and we're going to be here for a while. And, in the week leading up, there was a lot of talking by the Packers, a lot. It really felt like they were setting themselves up for failure. And they did, whether it was the defensive coordinator, Jeff Hapley, guaranteeing victory, or you have players like Keyshawn Nixon, Christian Watson, and Josh Jacobs begging to face the Bears. Like Caleb said, well, you got us. And it did not go their way. And, after the game, Kevin Byard was saying that, quote, all that talking, quote, definitely got us riled up. And while they did start slow, Byard said that this was the most special comeback that they've had so far. And that's saying a lot considering those 7 comebacks that they've had this season. And then DJ Moore was saying how it felt amazing to really send them home and keep us going. And that's the difference. The Bears are living to play another game. And meanwhile, the Packers are booking their flights to Cancun.
Exactly. And I want to jump into this game just a little bit. We are going to preview the Rams game, but I do want to jump and look back on this a little bit and get your perspective on some of these things, both of you, your perspectives on this. Danny, the team's defense kind of transformed its play from the first half to the second half. The Packers rushed for 93 yards in the first half, and Jordan Love was 9 of 15 for 139 yards and 3 touchdowns, but that production dipped dramatically in the second half. What did you notice they did or they adjusted going into the second half?
Well, in between all my yelling and hysterical reactions to the game, I did make some notes here in terms of what I saw in the second half. And the first note I want to bring to point here was Dennis Allen, his adjustment he made at halftime. The first thing I saw, it started with that first possession the Packers had, beginning of the third quarter. He started bringing more pressure and he started blitzing, whether it's, the first play I believe was Nashawn Wright corner blitz, provided pressure on Jordan Love. And then he started bringing Brisker, and then he started bringing Kyler Gordon blitzes. So he kept playing his man-to-man coverage, but now he was bringing the pressure guy, extra defender, extra blitzer, and he was mixing things up, right? And he was showing the other second point I wanted to notice or point out was they were kept showing 6 or 7 guys at the line of scrimmage. So a lot of times Jordan Love would go back there, pre-snap, looks, all right, there's 6, 7 guys. And going back to that earlier point, they started bringing more and more pressure. So now Jordan Love's thinking, all right, should I come out of this, get out of this play or continue with this play? So I think that had an effect on the Packers offense, because out of 38 offensive snaps in the second half, they threw the ball 31 times. They only ran it 7 times. With those 6 or 7 guys, defenders at the line of scrimmage, I think Dennis Allen got into Jordan Love's head, and he started checking out of some runs, maybe going with some pass plays. And I think that played into the Bears' hands. Another point is, unfortunately, TJ Edwards got hurt. But to me, guys, I noticed a big difference when DeMarco Jackson was in there. Right now, Jackson doesn't have the experience of TJ Edwards, but he's a younger, more athletic, faster linebacker. And you saw him make a difference, whether it's making plays sideline to sideline or even as a blitzer. DeMarco Jackson really made an impact, I feel like, in that second half of that ball game. And my fourth point was, Kyler Gordon, obviously early on, coming off of the 4 or 5 week layoff there, he showed rust, and you could tell he was being beaten in coverage over and over again. I think as the game went on, late third quarter, early fourth quarter, I think he started kind of coming back to getting some of that rust off. And you saw Kyler Gordon become more of a presence there, especially in that man coverage that Dennis Allen was using there out of the slot. Again, mentioned earlier, he was using him as a blitzer as well. So he likes getting involved at the line of scrimmage. So I think Gordon getting some of that rust off, making some plays in the secondary, being in phase, hip to hip with the receivers down the field, that helped. And also, I think Jalen Johnson, guys, in my opinion, this is the best game that he's played since he came back from his injury. And again, that's also more reps. A guy, maybe the adrenaline of the playoffs, got to Jalen Johnson, and you saw him being more in phase down the football field as well. So added pressure, confusing Jordan Love at the line of scrimmage, and the uptick in play from Gordon and Jalen Johnson, and infusing some of that speed and physicality of DeMarco Jackson in there. Unfortunately, it came at the hands of losing a veteran like TJ Edwards, who I love as a player. But putting Jackson in there, I think I saw that uptick, and I think all those combined led to the Bears having a dominant second half defensively.
Now, Alyssa, the defense has been a point of emphasis as far as discussing what's wrong with it, what can they do to fix it, and they made the adjustments in the second half. Bears Wire reported on PFF's highest graded players. Who on defense did they single out, and whose play would you like to spotlight? What caught your eye?
Yeah, so obviously defense had some standouts from that second half, which allowed the offense time to mount that comeback. And the highest graded defensive players were Grady Jarrett, who was the highest graded, Tyreek Stevenson, Jalen Reeves-Maybin, the linebacker who was just signed to the active roster today after TJ Edwards officially landed on IR. Then defensive end Dominique Robinson and Montez Sweat, who I want to single out. He really stood out to me, especially in the second half. While Sweat didn't get a sack officially, he disrupted Jordan Love and just made it hard for him to get comfortable back there. And that's what they needed to do. That was a big reason why the Bears won that second half. Officially, Sweat had 7 pressures, 3 hurries, 3 quarterback hits, 3 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and a pass breakup in that win over the Packers. This was a game where the Bears needed their top paid pass rusher to show up, and that's exactly what he did. And he deservedly got a game ball after that.
Absolutely, yeah. And Danny, you said last week you needed to see some Montez Sweat. You need to see him make his presence known, and he did at the right time. You also talked a little bit about Kyler Gordon. I want to dig a little bit deeper on that because you talked about last week the value that he brought. He did have some rust, but overall, what does his presence on that defense mean, not just for the pass game, but going into this Rams game?
Yeah, I kind of just want to touch on earlier, John, in terms of he's a chess piece here for Dennis Allen to utilize, where you can line him up in the slot to cover the slot corner. You can blitz him off the slot. You could put him on the outside if you want and cover some outside receivers. I want to see how he's used this week versus the Rams, but obviously that the rust was evident there. He was getting beat pretty regularly early on in that first half, even to the early part of the third quarter. But then I think some of that rust came off, and you saw him being better in terms of being in phase, getting his hands on a football. Obviously, a game ends with the ball. It should have been a pick, but he dropped it. But anyway, he was there to make the play on that ball as well. So I think, getting more comfortable now, getting this another full week now of more reps for him. I think he's going to get more accustomed to the speed of the game, back kind of get himself back into the flow of it, everything. So I think to see him here being utilized again as a blitzer, you can see him dropping back a little bit, maybe even used as a third linebacker because he loves getting physical at the line of scrimmage. So Kyler Gordon, when he's on the football field, he makes an impact. You feel his presence. The unfortunate part is just keeping him on the football field. So as long as he stays healthy, moving here on forward, I'm really curious to see how Dennis Allen decides to utilize Kyler Gordon in this game, with some of the weapons that the Rams have on the outside with Devontae Adams and obviously Puka Nacua. I would probably bet to see that we're gonna we'll have a matchup between Nacua in the slot and then Kyler Gordon, then matchup 1-on-1. That should be a pretty good physical battle there with those two going at each other.
Absolutely. No, I want to talk about the offense's performance versus the Packers. We should probably skip the first half, but we're not going to. Alyssa, you first. Can you tell us about the offense first half issues from a season standpoint? We talked about their slow starts, their first half woes. What was it? Just more of the same in this game against the Packers?
Yeah, and like you said, that's been the biggest issue for the offense all season, are getting off to fast starts. And, that goes all the way back to training camp. And, even when the Bears have been able to score points on their opening drive, they do tend to stall for the remainder of that first half. And for them, it's, about honing in on the detail, stacking productive drives. And I feel like, unless the luck runs out, that's something they're going to have to do if they want to go further in the playoffs. And like you said, specifically against the Packers, slow starts have been evident. In fact, all 3 matchups against the Packers, the Bears didn't run a single offensive play with the lead. Think of that. 110 plays, Green Bay led, offensive plays, Green Bay led to 0. And yet the Bears won 2 of those 3 games. It's just absolute insanity. But, the Bears did score their opening drive against the Packers, which was the first time that they had scored on an opening drive since November 2nd. But they did settle for a field goal after a strong start that ended short inside the 10-yard line. They're going to have to capitalize on those red zone opportunities coming up here against the Rams. And, something that we saw was from Caleb Williams in that first half was that frustration. We could see him screaming at his teammates on the sidelines during the first half. He was frustrated about them not honing in on the details, and he even took accountability for his part after the game. But, luckily they still had a chance in the fourth quarter. And when they do, they were able to pull off another improbable comeback. And I just keep thinking, and I think we've talked about it this season too, just think about full circle how dangerous this offense can be once they are able to play a full game. And we'll see if maybe perhaps they can take a small step forward in that regard Sunday night against the Rams.
Yeah, Danny, when you look at that performance offensively for the Bears and maybe even defensively for the Packers, were the Packers doing anything special, or was this just another Bears just can't get it working early and they got it takes 3 quarters for them to find their stride?
Well, the one thing, if you look at the first half, the Bears only have 4 possessions, right? And the Packers have 4 possessions as well. But the difference there is the Bears defense couldn't get the Packers off the football field. So out of the 4 possessions, the Packers scored 3 touchdowns. And I think that now with the Bears trying to establish a run game, and one thing that Jeff Hafley did, the defensive corner for the Packers, was he was hell bent on stopping the Bears rushing attack. And you saw the linebackers, Adrian Cooper and then also Quay Walker, initially quickly, try and come downhill, fill aggressively to kind of eliminate that Bears rushing attack, eliminate some of those cutback lanes for the running backs there. And I think that's what they're hell bent on stopping there. And add to the fact that that the Bears couldn't really get anything going in terms of down the football field. Take a look at these stats here for Caleb. On throws that traveled 15 plus yards, he was 2 for 5 in the first half for only 40 yards and 1 interception. Now you take that and you look what he did in the second half. He was on passes that went 15 plus yards. He was 7 for 13 for 166 yards and a touchdown. So I think having them kind of bog down the running attack, being now down 21-3, Caleb and company started throwing the ball a bit more. And I think even Ben Johnson mentioned in one of these weekly press conferences that helped get Caleb in a rhythm. And next thing you know, we see the Bears making big plays down the football field, chunk plays, 10, 15, 12, 20-yard, gains in the passing game.
Danny, I want to stick with you real quick because whenever the Bears offense started clicking, Coleston Loveland ended up having an incredible game, a career game for his short career, but it was a career game. And so last year, before the draft, you were telling Bears fans that Coleston Loveland was a better fit for the Chicago system than Tyler Warren was. Well, right now, Loveland looks like he could be a breakout superstar. Tell us what you're seeing and why his skill set is best suited for what Ben Johnson's trying to do.
We're just scratching the surface, guys, with Coleston Loveland. He's just getting better and better and better. And yeah, eight catches, 8 receptions, 137 yards, average 17 yards a carry. He is right now the Bears' number one weapon on offense, right? He has exceeded, in my opinion, Rome Odunze. And I think what we're seeing here, and one of the reasons why I was adamant that he was the pick, if you're looking for a tight end, I know Tyler Warren got off to a great start and Coleston got off to a slow start and everybody was kind of scratching their heads. But I'm saying, he was the perfect complement to Cole Kmet. Kmet was more of that inline wide tight end who can flex. You can flex him out, but Coleston was more he's a receiver in a big body, right? So he's a guy I could see right now. He runs receiver routes, does a great job on that 2-point conversion. Utilizing his big frame to block off that defensive back and convert that 2-point conversion. So he is just getting better. This is again just scratching the surface here what this kid can do. He that ability, if he stays healthy, God willing, knock on wood, could be a Travis Kelce type, right? To be a lead dog on this offense. And him and Caleb, their connection has just continued to grow. And now I think the Rams coming into this week, he is their main focus, right? Besides the rushing attack, I think the Rams are going to focus on stopping Coleston Loveland. But when that happens, when you pay more attention to a tight end, now you got guys on the outside with DJ Moore and Rome Odunze and even Luther Burden. That's where now you're going to see those guys kind of shine here because Colston's drawing so much attention. But yeah, this kid, as long as he stays healthy, he is a star in the making. And the Bears made the right pick, picking him over Tyler Warren in the draft.
We talked about the Bears tight ends with both Cole Kmet and Coleston Loveland. And I remember we kind of you came up with the comp that Cole Kmet's more like maybe like a Kyle Rudolph type guy whenever he's playing tight end. And you mentioned Travis Kelce. Is that potentially his comp? Is that the right tight end to say that he would evolve into if he hits his ceiling?
I think he's more dynamic down the football field than Travis Kelce, to be honest with you. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, Tom Brady compared him to Rob Gronkowski. I mean, I'm not going there yet, but I'm just saying that, coming out of Michigan, he showed that dynamic ability to be able to stretch the seam and be a playmaker in the middle of the football field. And we're seeing that right now. We're seeing his ability to get downfield, pressure on those safeties or even linebackers that are out there covering some. So I think, him now mix in with a rushing attack, mix in with Luther Burden and Rome Odunze, I think that spells danger and some ominous, decisions there for the defense to who you're going to cover here. So I think, matching him up a one-on-one versus a linebacker is a mismatch right away. Matching him up against a safety, probably he's going to outweigh him and maybe use his long frame and long arms to be able to, to muscle him for the catch. So right now he is a mismatch. And again, with that athletic ability, with that speed to be able to get downfield and run some of these precise routes, when he gets better and cleaner in his route running, guys, remember, he's only 20 years old. I believe he just turned 21. So he's still a pup in terms of, in football terms and years and all that stuff. So once he gets better with his route running, once he starts learning what defenses are doing, that's what I'm saying. That's when we're going to see this kid blossom and become a future All-Pro.
When we do this show, sometimes people sneak things into the rundown after I can see them. And so as I'm looking through this, and I can tell when Aldo's had his little pause on this. So, because now it says, Alyssa, if an alien who looked and sounded like Elmo, and in parentheses it says, do an Elmo voice. I'm being directed by the producer of this show to do an Elmo voice to ask you a question. And it seems like that maybe snuck in without me noticing it until we're already live. So it looks, yeah, you show your face. Because now it says, Alyssa, if an alien who looked and sounded like Elmo landed on Earth and told you, tell me about this football player you call Caleb Williams, what would you say?
John, I didn't know you had a talent like that.
You stunned me into silence.
I didn't realize I was going to have to do that, but here we are.
I didn't realize you had that talent, John.
Wow. Yeah. Old years of being a voice actor, yes.
Wow.
There have been many a time where John has shared that gift and it's just left me
Not publicly.
Not publicly, all before.
Are these one of those like John's hidden party tricks that you can do? Like, guys, look what
I don't. This is not something I brag about. This is not something I like to.
You should be bragging about it.
I know. Anyway, how do you describe Caleb Williams to somebody who never watched him before? And you're talking to Elmo, apparently.
Well, Elmo, first I'd like to say the world is a better place now that they've heard you on Buffone 55. So welcome to the show. But yes, if I had to describe Caleb Williams to you, Elmo, I'm going to say Superman, Iceman, Houdini, you name it. I mean, Caleb Williams is just, he's everything I think that, I've dreamed and that we've dreamed about in a Bears franchise quarterback. He's got that insane athletic ability and he's got finally the right head coach to maximize that talent. He's not perfect and that's okay. He's in his first season with Ben Johnson here. There's still some things for him to clean up, but he has something that other quarterbacks just haven't had in Chicago, the clutch gene, right? When the pressure is turned all the way up, that's when he's at his best. He shines. His 7 fourth quarter comebacks in a single season stands alone as the best in NFL history. I feel like every week he is just breaking a new record, and it's crazy. If the Bears are still in the game in the fourth quarter and Williams is under center, they're going to win that game more often than not. Not to mention his arm talent is insane. To quote Roma Dunze, who caught that incredible 4th and 8 pass that saved the season, it's, quote, his best throw until he makes the next best throw. He does that on a weekly basis. Every week we're just wowed. And it's exciting knowing that he's still young and has so much room to grow. And then he has the mobility. Here's the Houdini. He doesn't want to run, but he can, and he will when he needs to. Whether he's evading defenders to escape those surefire sacks or picking up first downs with his legs, he's really the complete package. He's got the arm and the legs, and he's just scratching the surface. He's only in his second season, year 1 with Ben Johnson, and, it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if, this time next season or even earlier, we're talking about Williams in the MVP discussion. So just he's an alien himself, Elmo. So
yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say.
Two things. Shout out to Bruja for saying Elmo 55. That was good.
Elmo 55. I need a shirt. I need it on a shirt now.
E55. Yeah.
That's what we're gonna call the show from now on.
E55. Great. Aldo, we're gonna have words after this. Anyway,
I love you, Aldo, King.
Second of all, it still blows my mind that everything you just said is about a Bears quarterback. We're talking about a Bears quarterback having these attributes, having these type of throws, and having these kind of aspirations where if you continue to see this progression, we're talking about an MVP conversation for a Bears quarterback. And he didn't quite get to 4,000 yards this year, but he still broke the Bears record. And you can only it's hard to see him regressing. You can only see it progressing, and so I'm just really excited. And he's got to be hard to plan for. In fact, I believe we have a soundbite of Sean McVay talking about Caleb Williams and what they're going to have to do to try to contain him.
I think it's easier said than done. It takes great rush integrity, great ability to be able to earn the right to rush and not allow him to have escape angles and understand what are the things that he does when he's at his best and try to be able to minimize those things. So we're going to dive into that. But it takes all 11. These are collective efforts. You got to be willing to strain a little bit longer. Normally you say those plays are 4 to 6, not with this guy. And so we have to be able to dig a little bit deeper. We have to be able to play a little bit harder, play a little bit faster, and play a little bit more connected so that you don't allow him to have the opportunity to, make plays in rhythm. And then when the things get really scary, or, it's that second reaction play that he seems like he's, finding ways to be able to create, and guys have a good rapport, being able to work off schedule with them on those. And it's why they're in the position they're in. It's why they're NFC North champs, and it's why they're the 2 seed, and we're going there, and it's going to be a great atmosphere and environment. And he's done a hell of a job to put his team in this position as the quarterback.
So there you have it. And Danny, we've talked about this all year, that, progress isn't necessarily linear. But the fact, what are you seeing from him from now going into the divisional round playoff game, which is something I didn't think I would utter in August. But what would you say where he is now to where we started in the beginning of September? What has been the progression, and what are you seeing from him now?
Yeah, John, you hit the nail on the head there, right? Because this is still a progressive prospect. It's still a player that's getting better, right? We haven't reached his top level yet. He's still there's still some things that he needs to work on. But what I'm seeing though from week 1 to now is this command of this offense. I see him at the line of scrimmage. That's really impressed me. Pre-snap, post-snap. This communication with his offensive linemen, his communication with his receivers and his backs. I think he's got total command of the offense right now, right? And the one thing that he still kind of struggles with is some of these easy throws. Kind of bailing on a deep throw early, taking that check down. But when you see him do it, like for example, a couple times in that second half, there was a check down to DeAndre Swift on the right sideline, 1 for 23 yards. There was a 3rd and 10 where he checked it down to Monangai, cut it upfield, got 15 yards, got a first down. So once he gets into learning that those are okay, I think you are going to just see this kid continue to get better and better. And I think what he's doing right now is just sheer raw athleticism, sheer raw athletic ability. Once he gets better and more accurate in terms of, I should say more consistent with his deep ball accuracy, I think we're going to see that, because here and there, you'll see an accurate throw, and I also see one a little bit tailing off a little bit though. But again, I'm just impressed in terms of his command of the offense at the line of scrimmage, his ability to kind of just, pressure moments, just remain calm, don't let his heart level elevate. And you can just see, when the Bears are making that comeback, he was like the coolest cat in the stadium. I mean, you don't see him jump in or rah-rahing or anything. He was just really calm and looking at the sidelines. Are we going for 1? Are we going for 2? That's really impressed me for someone that young. And once he gets everything, and that should probably be next year in Ben Johnson's system, another whole full offseason with Ben Johnson, that's where we're going to see what Alyssa alluded to earlier in terms of MVP talk, because then we're going to see the QBR and the rating and all that stuff kind of come up. Right now, he's just doing it by the seat of his pants. And, last year was, he can't do anything from the pocket. Well, he's making plays in the pocket. Now, is he consistently on timing and all that stuff? No, there's times where that breaks down. But the one thing that Caleb has said over and over again, I think Ben Johnson is trying to kind of work with him here, is once he sees his first couple of passes connect, he gets in the rhythm, right? And that's all we saw in that first half. He was a little bit off rhythm. The Bears weren't really, only had 4 possessions, were kind of hit or miss here on offense. But once he started throwing the ball more, you got him in rhythm, and that's when Caleb can't miss. And that's when he's in his element. And when he's in rhythm and he's confident and he's making plays, especially when he's out to make those schoolyard plays, rolling out and make things happen on his own, that's when I think you see the best of Caleb Williams. And then the other thing is something that surprised me, and he's fast. He's a fast cat. And when he gets out of that pocket and he breaks contain, he can outrun defenders to the first down marker and all that stuff. So he's becoming a true dual threat quarterback right before our eyes. And again, the best, just like with Coleston, the best is yet to come with this kid.
Danny, I want to stick with you just real quick because obviously Ben Johnson likes to establish the run game, try to be a physical black and blue kind of team to run the football. That didn't work out too much against the Packers, and we've seen a couple games where they haven't been able to establish that run game. What do you think that was caused by? Was that more because they just couldn't get it going, or was that they're down 21-3 and they got to start throwing the ball downfield? Or maybe a mixture of both? What happened to the run game?
Well, earlier I touched on in terms of the linebackers for the Packers, and Walker and Cooper were just really aggressive in terms of downhill aggressive, filling those run gaps. So I think that's one thing there. And the Lions kind of put out something there, a blueprint in terms of how to stop the Bears run game, and that's bringing extra guys at the line of scrimmage, kind of giving a hard time for some of these the guards and centers if they want to go ahead and elevate to the next level and get to that linebacker. Now you got an extra defender at the line of scrimmage you have to worry about. So I think that's something where Ben Johnson and company have to take a look at and see. But yeah, there's no doubt that the Bears run game hasn't been as effective as it was, coming into the last, couple of weeks of the season there. So that's something that they have to kind of go back and look at. Now, coming up with the Rams, they don't have a really physical defensive front. They have a quick, dynamic, athletes up against, on their defensive line. So I think this might be a game where, they get back to the basics, right? Getting those angles on those blocks, making sure you finish your blocks and get to that second level. I think this is a team you could go ahead and hopefully reestablish that run game versus the Rams coming up here in this next game.
Yeah, you mentioned the game, so let's just jump into it. Let's talk divisional round, Bears and Rams. Alyssa, what do the numbers say about that Rams run defense that Danny was just talking about, and what could it mean for the Bears?
Yeah, looking at it, the Rams have been pretty solid against the run this season, allowing 109.3 yards per game, which ranked 11th in the league. But when you look at the end of the season, which is when that defense really started to drop off, there were a couple games. They allowed 171 rushing yards to the Seahawks and then 219 rushing yards to the Falcons. So like Danny said, this has the potential for the Bears to really get that running game back on track. They've been a top 3 consistent rushing attack, since after the bye week, averaging over 141 yards a game. So, the opportunity is going to be there for DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monengai. You look at the last couple of games that they played, like Danny said, they've failed to eclipse 100 rushing yards in the last 2 games, but they've also had to overcome a lead. They had 65 again, or a deficit. They had 65 against the Lions in week 18 and then 93 against the Packers last week. So this does feel like a game where the Bears could look to replicate that dominant outing they had against the Eagles from Black Friday. Let's hope it has the same impact, especially when you factor in the weather, which could really make things interesting here.
Bear weather, right? From what I understand,
Don't
it's going to
start that.
Bear weather. Come on, Danny.
Well, last time I heard, like, the wind chill is going to be, it's going to feel like negative, like under 0, and so maybe that. Listen, my thoughts on bear weather. Everyone has to play in it, and everyone hates it. So, but like maybe Matt Stafford, I know he banged up his finger. Maybe the cold plays a factor in that injured finger. We're sticking with the Rams defense right now, though, Danny. Who are some of the players on the Rams defense that would concern you from a matchup standpoint? Because obviously the Bears lost Ozzie Trapillo. He's not going to be in for the rest of the year. So what are the Bears up against this weekend?
You know me so well, John. Let me right to it. I'm a line of scrimmage guy, and that's the matchup that bothers me right now, or worries me the most when you talk about the Rams and the Bears. Those edge rushers for the Rams. You're talking about Byron Young leads the Rams with 12 sacks, and then also Jared Verse with 7.5 sacks. His sack numbers, Verse, that is, aren't as high as Young's, but his pressures are right up there. And this guy makes quarterbacks, constantly, nervous in the pocket. So, Darnell Wright, and as you mentioned, Theo Bennett filling in for, we assume Theo Bennett's going to get the start of left tackle, obviously with Trapillo going down with a long-term knee injury there. So I think those are the matchups that the Bears are going to have to be cognizant of, right? Ben Johnson's going to have to be able to help Theo Bennett on the left side with either Verse or Young, and then same with Darnell Wright. Jared Verse can beat you with power and with speed as well, and he plays a nasty brand of football. So, I just hope Wright and Bennett are ready to take on those two guys. And so that's if you can neutralize that pass rush. Like I said earlier, I think you can run on this scheme. You can run on this team here, and their secondary isn't the greatest. So I think you can also, if you need to throw the ball on them, but it's just establish a run game like you have in the past. Get the second level guys to bite, and then neutralize some of that pass rush on the outside, and get the ball out to your playmakers early in space, and get the ball in their hands, and let them cook there. But I think this is going to be a game that points are going to have to be scored on both ends to go ahead and secure the victory.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one. Some people say it's gonna be a shootout. Other people think the cold weather might play a part in this. On the other side, Alyssa, Matt Stafford, many say is the favorite to win MVP. What's the background on him this year? Why is he playing at such a high level, and what can the Bears expect going into Sunday night?
Yeah, like you said, it's pretty much been a two-man race between Matthew Stafford and Drake May at this point, who've had both had impressive seasons. But when you look at Stafford specifically, he led the NFL in passing this season with 4,707 yards, as well as passing touchdowns with 46. He also completed 65% of his passes and threw just 8 interceptions. Then you look at what the Rams have done from an offensive standpoint. They are the number 1 ranked offense in the league. They average 30.7 points per game, 395.6 yards per game, and 269.6 passing yards per game, all ranked first in the NFL. So it's not difficult to see why he's in the MVP talks, and also leading the Rams to an 11-5 record and the top wildcard spot in what's been a competitive NFC West. Right now it's three teams from the NFC West and the Bears left in the NFC playoffs. So, it's hard to fault them for being a wild card team in that division. And then you look at what Stafford did last week against the Panthers. He battled an index finger injury that he suffered there later in the first half on his throwing hand, and he still was able to lead them to a comeback to keep their playoff journey alive. So he was just to the first team All-Pro, and now he's going to face his biggest test to date, which is January football in Chicago.
Yeah, for sure. And Danny, talking to a lot of Bears fans who were watching that 49ers-Eagles game, a lot of fans wanted to end up playing the Eagles because of their offensive woes and their inability to, score a lot of points. And then because if you look at the Rams, you have Matt Stafford, but then also you have on the outside Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua. What kind of matchup problems are they going to cause for this Bears secondary that is up and down? And I'm being diplomatic about it.
Yeah, I was one of those people that was pretty upset that the Eagles lost to the 49ers, because I did want to play the Eagles as well because of their challenges on offense, and I think that would have been a better matchup for the Bears. Plus, they had played them in the regular season already, so they had some familiarity with their schemes and their system. So yeah, this is the team that I did not want to face because of that offense, because of Matthew Stafford in terms of his MVP potential that he's playing at. Those two weapons on the outside with Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua, not to mention Kyron Williams, 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns on the season. So they're a well-balanced offense, obviously, and McVay calling up those plays. So, and the tight ends too. The tight ends can also get there and score some touchdowns. So this is going to be the offense that scares me the most. And so in terms of what Dennis Allen cooks up, how he does it, I don't know. But we talked about earlier in the show in terms of Jalen Johnson playing his best game since coming back from injury. Maybe Kyle Gordon getting a little bit better. Tyreek Stevenson had a solid game as well, so maybe he can get mixed in there as well, because you're going to need all hands on deck. We're not sure yet. The injury report hasn't come out yet. Maybe tomorrow we'll see if Garner Johnson will be there. Not that he's going to help you much in coverage, but maybe another guy that can play at or near the line of scrimmage, help with some of that run defense, maybe help as a blitzer as well. So this is maybe one of those offenses that all hands are on deck, anything goes. Throw the kitchen sink at them, mix up with blitzing and man coverage and zone, and just to get them off of their game and off rhythm. The cold weather hopefully will help, but I do recall last year, in the snow and the blizzard in Philadelphia, Matthew Stafford and the Rams almost pulled out a victory versus the eventual Super Bowl champion. So, but to me, this is the toughest team left in the NFC. If the Bears somehow, some way win this game versus the Rams, the Bears are going to the Super Bowl, because they will go to Seattle or they will welcome the 49ers here next week, whichever wins that game, and they will beat those teams. So this is the lone remaining obstacle, if you will, in my opinion, for the Bears. You beat the Rams this week, somehow, some way, the Bears, mark my words, are going to the Super Bowl.
I can't believe I just heard those words, because as a fan, it's just still hard to really wrap your head around that they're a couple wins away from being in the Super Bowl. Like, that still seems absurd to me, but they're closer than I'm allowing myself to really realize. Danny, we're talking about matchups. Is there any matchup that you're really worried about, or one that you're really looking forward to watching? Is it the receivers on the secondary? What's the matchup that you're gonna be looking at the most during this?
Yeah, that's it. Can you neutralize? You're not going to stop them, but can you neutralize Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams? Whether it's putting Kyler Gordon on Puka Nacua, or having him travel with him, or are you going to put Jalen Johnson or Nahshon Wright on Devontae Adams? What is Dennis Allen's plan to neutralize those two guys? Because once you neutralize those two guys, and maybe the weather will help. Maybe the ball's a little slicker, it's a little harder. It's a little harder to catch. Who knows? But I just know that this offense scares the hell out of me, especially because of the lack of defensive firepower that the Bears have and Dennis Allen has, and he's kind of trying to bring things in, generate pressure and all that stuff. So if Montez Sweat's going to have a game of his career, if Gervon Dexter's going to have a game of his career, this is the week to pull it out, because like I said, you beat this team and you have a chance to go to the Super Bowl.
Well, with that, we're gonna go around the horn with some predictions for the game. I'm gonna let Danny stew on that for a second. Alyssa, so going into this game, I agree. The Rams are maybe the toughest test of whoever's left in the NFC pool. What are your thoughts going into this game? Actually, before I even get predictions, I want to ask the same question that I asked last week, and it turned out that they didn't need one. But do you think the Bears absolutely need a turnover in this game to win? And Alyssa, I'll start with you and then get Danny.
I think so. When you look at this offense that they're going up against, I mean, it's crazy. Against the Packers, they didn't have a takeaway, even though they had opportunities to. Kind of some luck went Green Bay's way in that regard, where they could have had a few there. But I think this feels like a game where it could happen if the weather is a significant impact. Like Danny said, the ball's a little slicker. Matthew Stafford has that injured finger on his throwing hand. Who knows what could happen. But it feels like I forget what the record is, but I feel like they need at least 2, right? And that's when they end up winning games. So I feel like they're going to need to take the ball away here and protect the ball. I mean, they've had the best turnover margin in the NFL all season and the most takeaways. This feels like an opportunity where they're going to need to capitalize if the opportunity arises. Because like Danny says, this offense does scare me as well.
And just a shout out to Claus, who was our guest co-host last week. He said they didn't need one, and he was right. Claus knew. Thanks for jumping in. Danny, is this one of those ones where, Green Bay's different from LA? Do they need to get a turnover to stop this, or do they just need to win the time of possession and they don't necessarily need a turnover? What do they need to do?
Well, like I said, I think last week was the first time the Bears actually lost the turnover ratio battle and actually won a game this season. So that's why, if you go about what they've done this whole season, you would think they would need a turnover or 2 to get themselves in the game. My biggest thing is, can you make the Rams punt? If you can make the Rams punt, I think that's going to be just as good, because I think the offense, again, can score on these guys. So that's my thing is can you get a couple of turnovers, 3 and out or whatnot, stop them, make them punt the ball, get a turnover would be great. Kyren Williams does have a fumbling problem. So if you can go ahead and punch that ball out, I think you can create some fumbles there on Kyren Williams, the Rams running back. I think that's a way you guys could get some turnovers there for the Bears. But yeah, I would love a turnover or 2. Obviously, I would love to see the punter for the Rams play a big role in this game as well, because if we see the punter, that's good news for the Bears as well. Because like I said, the Bears, I feel like, are going to score on this defense.
Yeah, and I saw that Aldo put in the chat, no special teams talks or kicking talks. Yeah, I mean, it really could come down to that in terrible weather. And I guess there's been some questions about the Rams special teams unit. I don't know if we have any information about them at this point, although we probably should. If this is going to be a close game, maybe we should have broken down special teams a little bit more. But let's start going around with some of those predictions. Alyssa, what do you think? You don't have to give me a score or anything, but what do you think? How do you think some of this turns out?
I mean, see, my head says to go Rams, and I feel like a lot of people will, just because, Sean McVay, the Rams have the number 1 offense. The Bears defense has struggled. Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. The fact that I saw this stat, and it just, the Bears haven't won on Sunday Night Football since 2018. And that was the last time they played the Rams, that game where I went with Jared Goff. So
was it cold that game?
It was cold that
very
game.
Cold
so I'm
that
just saying, and this season has been about, Ben Johnson and the Bears, just, righting those wrongs and starting a new history. So, I mean, my gut's also telling me that with those, potential conditions with the brutal cold and if there's snow coupled with, Chicago's improbable fourth quarter comebacks, and they have the Pope on their side too. I mean, they could very well win this game. And if they do, like Danny said, I mean, they have a good chance going to the Super Bowl, which is crazy that we're even talking about that. But I mean, I'm not going to make my pick official until later in the week, but I probably would wind up taking the Rams here, and praying that the Bears take offense to that and prove me wrong. That offense just scares me. I mean, we'll see if the weather impacts it, how Stafford's doing, what Dennis Allen, has in store for Sean McVay and that offense. And we see how the Bears, I feel like the Bears offense and how they start this game might also dictate that as well. But yeah, no, I'm just rambling, and I'm basically saying I feel like it's the Rams, but I mean, I've thought that in the past with other games, and the Bears have proved me wrong. So please prove me wrong again.
There you go. Alyssa providing bulletin board material for the Bears. They're going to see that Ben Johnson's going to put it up on the wall and say, "Look, no one believes in you." Danny, what's your prediction for this game?
Well, when I heard the Eagles lost and the Bears are going to face the Rams, my first thought was, no, it was a nice season. We'll see you guys next year, right? But as I started to kind of break down the tape and watch some of the Rams games, and then also watch what the Bears have done, and just kind of believe in what Ben Johnson's been preaching here, and just see the intensity that he brings and the preparation that he has his team, and how they never give up. They always believe until that final whistle blows that they're in the football game. And I started feeling much better and better about the Bears' chances versus the Rams. And it might have been the bad turkey I had for lunch, I'm not sure, but right now I really think, guys, that the Bears are going to pull this one off, and it's going to be 38-35 Bears on a Cairo Santos last-second field goal. And the cardiac Bears are going to give us a heart attack, but I think they are
on a field goal, Danny.
I think they're going to Seattle next week for the NFC Championship game. That's my call.
My heart.
I don't think my heart can.
That. Yeah,
I was going to say my heart can't take a Cairo Santos game-winning field goal to go the other.
I mean, I will take it. It's better than a Cairo Santos miss, and so I will take that. Listen, this is going off of no logic. This is going off of no statistics or analytics. But this has been a year of speaking things into existence and just believing. If you want to call it magic, if you want to call it luck, if you want to call it divine intervention, I don't care what you want to call it. Whatever reason, the Bears have been on the right side of these things all year, sans the San Francisco game. But they're not facing San Francisco. They're facing the Rams. And for whatever reason, they're able to come back. They're able to get the job done. They're able to just do enough to win the game. And I think in Chicago, in that weather, with the crowd going crazy again, and hopefully rattling Stafford a little early, they can win this game. I don't know if it's going to be a 15-13 game. I don't know if it's going to be a 38-35 game, but I think they find a way. If it's going to be running the ball and keeping the Rams offense on the bench, they're going to do that. If it's going to be, hey, we're just going to have the first 1 to 50 wins, then they're going to do that. If they're going to have to kick a field goal with 5 seconds left with the wind swirling around Soldier Field and Cairo Santos kicks it way right, and then somehow the football gods curl it in through the uprights, and they end up winning on a field goal that looked like it was going to miss wide, and then it goes through the uprights and Bears fans rejoice, then I'm taking that too. So I'm thinking somehow, some way, they're going to find a way to get it done and win this game, and you can go to the NFC Championship game. The NFC Championship game. Before I get too excited about it, I want to go around the horn one more time and just talk about what everybody's working on this week, what they're going to be doing. Alyssa, I know you got a lot of stuff cooking for Bears Wire this week. This is probably the busiest you've been in it. Well, I mean, other than talking about coaching candidates, this is probably a wildly different week for you covering the divisional round of the NFL playoff.
Yeah, normally at this time, it's all, postseason, looking ahead, mock drafts, free agents, like all that. So this is a welcome change. So I didn't mind being up till 3 a.m. the other night when the Bears are beating the Packers to win a playoff game. But yes, over at Bears Wire, we're getting ready for the game. We have all of our pre-game content and analysis, everything coming out of a House Hall, injury reports, which everyone's going to be keeping an eye on. And we're going to try to get you through. And hopefully at the end of the game, it's going to be another, hopefully good, better, best locker room situation. Going to have all that covered there.
Danny, it's always draft season. I know you're working on stuff over at Shimon Draft Scout, but I know that there's a Bears game on this week. So what's going on? What are you working on, and what can people be looking forward to?
Yeah, like normally I'm head deep into draft preparation, but this year with the Bears doing what they're doing, it's been a little bit of a hard time getting deep into the draft stuff, but. It doesn't stop, right? The Senior Bowl is in a couple of weeks, so I'm keeping an eye on in terms of the Senior Bowl exceptions, acceptance in terms of the invitations, who's going, who's not going to the Senior Bowl. I'm also keeping an eye on the underclassmen that are declaring. Their deadline's coming up there as well. See who's going to be in the draft or not going to be in the draft. But just making up the Bears' needs so far as I see them. As we go into hopefully. Not soon, but as we go into the offseason and maybe another 4 weeks or so. But just getting ready for the draft and just making sure and see who's going to be declaring, who's going to be in the draft, and then also then marking off and seeing who's available in veteran free agency where the Bears could attack, and also then offsetting that with some of the draft needs and making that board go there and now finding some of those prospects that will fit this scheme. Now we have a year into Ben Johnson and Dennis Allen's system. A better idea in terms of the kind of players that they want and like. So I think this year will be a little bit more easier in terms of identifying guys, potential Bears fits here in the 2026 draft.
Excellent stuff. And I'm just going to leave you all with this. Listen, I'm going to talk about the same stuff we talked about at the top of the show. There are a ton of teams right now looking for head coaches. There are a ton of teams right now who don't know who their starting quarterback is going to be next year. By the way, thank you to Lutz, the reporter, for the paid comment. Always appreciate that. But there are plenty of teams that are out of the playoffs, that had disappointing seasons. They had first-round exits when they had Super Bowl aspirations. There are a lot of teams right now that are not as well positioned as the Chicago Bears. And that's if we were to told us this back in August and September, I'm not sure any of us would have believed you. But right now, the Bears, while everyone else is in disarray and they're trying to figure out their future, the Bears are hosting a divisional round playoff game for the right to play in the NFC Championship game. And we got an incredible coach and an ascending quarterback and a team that just believes in itself right now, and fans believing in this team that no matter how far down they are, they can get back up, answer the bell, and score a knockout. It's going to be an incredible week. It's been an incredible season. We appreciate each and every one of you tuning in, whether it's the live version, the podcast version, the audio version, the video version. I don't care what you're watching or listening to this show on. We appreciate you. This is the best community in the world. Bears fans, we are so excited. I'm so excited. And just to bookend this show and close it out, Aldo has produced a video to help us share our thoughts on the Bears-Packers rivalry as we look ahead to the Rams this week. But we're going to leave you with that and an invitation to join us right here next week for another episode of Buffone 55. For Danny Shimon, Alyssa Barbieri, and Aldo, we'll see you next week.
We are not going to be done, so I will see you guys next week.
They wanted us, said our name because history made it easy, because they knew how the story often went.
Cobb! Touchdown! Randall Cobb! Right on cue, Joe.
Years stacked like scars, a city's unconditional love put to test. But this fan base knew that eventually our winter was coming. January 10th changed the temperature. These bears don't carry ghosts of the past, they carry purpose.
It's our night tonight. Feed off this energy, fellas. We're here for
with belief in a defense that won't give up. A defense that was good is getting better and is working to be best. It's then about an offense. It runs, it blocks, it passes with a quarterback who Fences shifted, the climb changed size. This is playoff football in Chicago. Cold, connected, unapologetic. They don't choose us now.
Bears by 4.
We choose them. They don't choose us now. 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 We choose them.